Hey, I'm JJ Como, and you're watching Country Music We Trust. Today we have our guest, Executive Director of NSAI, Mr. Bart Herbison.
Been looking forward, man.
Thank you for being here. Bart, I know you've been doing a lot of work down at Capitol Hill. Can you give us a little update on the progress you've made on the Music Modernization Act?
I'll be glad to. Look, that's a brief question that usually takes about an hour to explain, but I'm going to condense it. Songwriters have suffered in the streaming era. And what your listeners need to know, basically, is when they hear a song, there's two copyrights. There's the song that Jesse writes, and that's completely controlled, or at least it has been, by ridiculous government rules. And then there's the record somebody makes from that song, and not very much government control. And so, while we've been under these oppressive rules from 1909 and 1941, the records have made a lot of money on streaming, where the song hasn't. And so we passed the Music Modernization Act that changes the way our rates are set, and we should see significant increases for many, many, many years to come. I could get into the weeds more. It also does some things for the record labels. It finally pays you for records you made before 1972. And there's a lot of other things it does, but the basic premise is it changes the way songwriter rates are set, and we should do well in the future going forward. Now, streaming's still new. It's still not going to be massive amounts of money. It's not going to happen overnight. But along with the Music Modernization Act, we won a huge trial before that bill was ever passed that amounted to a 44.1% increase for songwriters for streaming on their mechanical royalties, the largest in history. The streaming companies have appealed that. It'll take us a year or two to figure out if we actually get that raise. I believe we will. But you take those two things, and for years, songwriters' incomes going like that are now going like this. More we need to do, but a really, really good start.
Well, we appreciate everything you've done. We know you've been busy going down to Capitol Hill, and we as songwriters appreciate all that you do, and NSAI, a great business that helps songwriters. We appreciate that part.
Yeah. Well, that's why we were founded. We're a not-for-profit songwriters advocacy group. We were founded in 1967 when Nashville only had 80 songwriters. And 42 got together so we would be designed for this purpose, to fight the battles for the American songwriters. And I'm proud of what we've done. We're going to do some more before it's all said and done with, too. So.
Well, we appreciate it. Well, the reason we're here today is to discuss this magical guitar over here. This is a very special guitar. It belonged to a legend of Nashville songwriting. Could you tell us who is the author or the owner of this guitar?
I can't believe you found this album cover. I've seen it online, and so maybe we can fly a shot in later. This was the great Hank Cochran, and that's Hank holding this guitar.
Yeah, and if you look at the album cover and the scratches on it, you can see it's the guitar.
So I love this story. So I arrived here in 1997, and we were in a little building right across the street over here, and I was so busy for the first few months that there was a closet in my office and I never opened it. It was just before Christmas in 1997. I opened that door, and there were 5 guitars in my office closet, 3 kind of pieces of junk. A really nice Takamine, and this 1954 Martin D18. And you get a J Series Gibson from that era, or a D Series Martin. They age like Stradivarius. That thing gets better every year it gets older.
Sure.
It sounds better. And it's in the original case, and there's a little yellowed, curled up index card that says Hank Cochran's first guitar. I'm like, what? And nobody in the office really knew much about it. So I call Hank. He calls me back 11 months later. If you knew Hank, that was about right. He told me, he said, Bart, I put that message in a pocket, and I didn't wear that coat again. It was in a performance coat. Put it back on the next winter, and called me, and he goes, what'd you want? I said, I want to ask you about this guitar. Excuse me. So Hank says, I donated it to NSAI to raise some money for the association. And apparently it was part of an auction, and they didn't believe people bid enough on it. So we kept it. And here comes the big moment, drum roll. I knew he was going to ask me this. He says, I might want it back. It's yours. What are you going to do with it? And I said, look, it could be, let me back up a little bit, and then I'll give you the dramatic answer to that question. Hank, in 1955, RCA Records put him together with Eddie Cochran and called them the Cochran Brothers and sent them to Europe on a rockabilly tour, essentially. No relation. That Eddie Cochran ain't no cure for the summertime blues. And they did about 18 months over there. Then Hank came back, got that record deal, made these records, a lot of them, and wrote songs from, are you ready? Itty Bitty Tear, I Fall to Pieces, Make the World Go Away, all the way up to Oceanfront Property on that guitar. He went and bought it for this act they put together. Bought it in December, they hit the road the next January. So Hank asked me, what are you going to do with it? I said it could go in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it could go in some Country Music Hall of Fames, it could go in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, but I think people need to play it. I knew some Hank Cochran stories, and they're very encouraging. Hank believed in himself. And look, there was a time when I think Hank had 5 songs in the top 20, like 20 songs in the top 100. And I think writers need to play it when they come into this office. The kid off the street, all the way up to the big stars, and you can't imagine who's played this guitar. Everybody's played this guitar. And he sat there for a minute and goes, I'm gonna tell you one blank thing. If you do anything else with it, I want it back. People need to play it. And I got to know Hank a little bit. I visited him, went out to his house. I could tell you many Hank Cochran stories. Some I wouldn't tell on camera, some I would. But the first time I went, Hank lived in what I call a compound up in Hendersonville. Sort of a log cabin type building with an addition over here where he wrote songs and a breezeway between them. And the driveway went like this, scalloped. And the house is 100 yards away from here to the house, but it takes 5 minutes. You're braking your power steering to get around here. When I got up there, I said, Hank, what's up with this freaking driveway? He goes, I can see him coming, and it gives me some time. I said, of course it does. And so that was Hank Cochran, man. And through the years, writers will come in here and often discouraged. And I'll tell them stories about like Make the World Go Away, for example. So here's the story. Hank's publisher called him in one day. Said, Hank, man, I hear you've written a song called Make the World Go Away. Yeah, you want to hear it? Can't wait. I don't want to hear it. You need to quit playing it. And you didn't do demos then. You went and played it for Ched or Owen, and it got cut.
Sure.
You know, you didn't do demos. And I don't know which one, Ched or Owen Bradley, one of them had told this publisher. And he goes, who'd want to make the world go away? That's just the saddest. And Hank goes, but, and he goes, that's it. Don't play it anymore. So Hank leaves. Of course he went and played it for other people, tried to get it cut. And about a week later, the publisher calls him back in more formally with his contract laying on the table. This is exactly how Hank told me this story. And he said, Hank, I've never had to be your publisher, but I told you not to play that song. And I'm your publisher. The next time, we've had all this success together. You got all these songs on the charts. You got others to play. Don't be pitching that song. Because the next time this contract gets torn up. Let me play it for you. Just don't want to hear it. We're done. So Hank leaves. And of course plays it for everybody in town. Now I was lucky enough to know the late great Eddie Arnold. So on his 85th birthday, I went with him to the state capitol where former Governor Don Sundquist honored Eddie. And he told me the second part of this story. So there's a little radio station over here off Music Row. It's a Christian station now. It used to be a country station. And you would record an acetate, a big thick vinyl that they would make other copies from. And often you take the acetate from the studio straight over to this little radio station. And they listen to it to see if they wanted to change anything before they pressed it. Nobody remembers, but somebody records Make the World Go Away. Now Eddie's in a little bit of a tussle with his record label at the time. Is he country? Not exactly, with all these strings, and he wanted to do more like pop sound, and the label here in Nashville didn't want him to, but he's their biggest artist, and what do? So RCA gives him a monumental budget for the time, tells him to go to London, where they've hired the London Philharmonic, and you produce your own next record. He's riding up Music Row, and he hears Make the World Go Away. Drives to the station, they give him the acetate, which he puts in his luggage, takes to London, records it, sells 11 million copies. So they're all at the BMI Awards that year, getting their big award right before the camera flashes for the picture they're all going to take. Hank leans over to the publisher. You think anybody would want to make the damn world go away now? Snap. And that was a kind of Hank Cochran story about being persistent, believing in yourself, and that's the guitar he wrote it on, and all those others. Let's hear a little bit. You got to at least drum
Well,
it,
it's an amazing guitar. It's in tune.
Don't you feel like you've played it before? There's something in it, man, inspirational. There's a vibe in that guitar.
Absolutely. They say whoever plays this guitar is gonna have a big number one. They don't say that. I just said that today, but.
Well, a lot of people have, and I will tell you this: it's inspirational, and the Cochran stories are amazing. Bittersweet. Hank died several years ago, and about 10 days before he passed away, and I hadn't talked to Hank in a while. Phone rings. It's Hank Cochran, and in a raspy voice, he goes, "Bart, what's up with that guitar, man?" I said, "People are playing it every day." And I told him the story of a kid that had come in here kind of down, and I stuck that guitar in his hand, and it really turned things around for him. And I said, "They're playing it every day, Hank, and that's what we're doing with it." He goes, "That's what I wanted." He hung up. That's the last time I ever talked to him. But there's just something magic in it, man. There's something magic in it.
Well, it's a great story. It's a great guitar. If you want to learn more about NSAI, go to NashvilleSongwriters.com. Also, check out Bart has his own vlog called Stories Behind the Song.
Yeah, it's in the Tennessean every Sunday. You go to Tennessean.com, click on music, click on Story Behind the Song. My favorite thing I get to do. I just taped 2 episodes that this will air for a time. I don't want to date it, but just taped 2 songs, Carolina in the Pines and Wildfire with Michael Martin Murphy. Just got to do Achy Breaky Heart. I love getting to talk about songs, man.
It's great, so go check that out, and we thank you for watching. Catch you on the next one.